I am feeling a little roguelike today. As a matter of fact, I feel like I want to harvest some rogue. And what do you know? I so happen to have a game right here that will satisfy my needs. I will be reviewing this game in Downtime Distractions. The game is known to gamers as Rogue Harvest. It is a roguelike open world survival Minecraft-like RPG. The studio behind this is Genetix. Genetix is a one-man team and has been working on this title for 3 years. This one man is your publisher, artist, programmer, tester, designer, intern, team lead, tech lead, and the cook. So it is no surprise that the game is still in early access. I have played and survived for about 14 in-game days, and I have pretty much seen all that the game has to offer at this stage of production. And from what I have played and experienced, I'm enjoying it so far. Before we reap some rogue from our harvest, we want to announce this video as our semi-new official segment for the channel as our full reviews. In these reviews, we have either completed the game or played the game to an extent that there is no more content to see. In this case, it's Rogue Harvest. Like most reviews, we will cover aspects of the story, graphics, game controls, gameplay, and finish off with a conclusion. So, let's see what kind of storyline we have harvested from this game. The way the story is told is quite interesting. The game starts off with a very short 2-sentence introduction that gives you a hint as to your situation in the world. Once the game starts, you wake up in an abandoned house in the middle of nowhere with no memory of how you got there, no manual or book or anyone to interact with. The manner at which the story progresses is quite interesting, and yet also abruptive. What Genetix has done is, as you survive longer, it hints about your past with quick flashes of images representing flashes of your character's memory. These flashes seem to happen more often the longer you survive. The issue I have with these flashes is that they happen so quickly and suddenly. I would jump out of my chair every time they appear, and thus my point about it being abruptive. And because of this, I forget straight away what the image was even all about. If only these flashes were turned down and stayed on the screen a little longer. Maybe have it slowly flash into view, then appear in full for a few seconds to give us a chance to meld in and see what the actual image is. And maybe, get a idea of what the story is all about. I emailed Genetix to ask them questions about where the storyline is going, and the answer I got was very intriguing. I'm not planning to spoil it, but let's just say Genetix has a very cool plot twist in mind. The visuals of the game isn't anything really exceptional here. The whole game is viewed from an angled, top-down position with 2D pixelated graphics. Very similar to something like Final Fantasy, Secret of Mana, on the old-school Super Nintendo consoles. Once the game reaches nighttime, the atmosphere of the game does change quite dramatically, and sets the mood really well from this wonderful, bright, cheerful day to a dark and dangerous night. And I can tell you, you don't want to be anywhere but inside that little house during nighttime, because the creepy and grotesque things that come out of the forest is not paying you a visit to play some board games. The game world is also progresses in seasons. It was really cool to not just see the changes happen visually, but it also affected the gameplay by causing farmed and wild crops to no longer grow. I hope to see more of these elemental survival situations. For example, having to make a fur coat to survive the cold outside. Having different kind of monsters appearing. And food maybe lasts a little longer in the cold. Just some ideas for Genetix to ponder over. The controls is again good for what it is. However, there are a few problem areas that need to be addressed. I found the attacks confusing at times. I couldn't tell whether the attack were based on some calculation to work out the hit accuracy, or the hitbox was just badly placed. So, just to give you an example of what I mean by the kind of hit and miss with the attack, is that when you're attacking, sometimes you do see you're attacking the person, but at the same time, you also don't know if you're hitting. So there are times where there's not enough indication to show you that you've missed. That the monster kind of does a little wiggle. And is it a miss? See, like that. Was that a miss or was that a hit? Obviously, most of the time you do get to hit the character, but on occasions when you do try and attack, you're not quite sure if you hit him or not. There's no indication that I missed an attack. It's very good that I can see numbers appearing to show that I've hit, but there's no indication that I've kind of missed. I mean, that's just a small thing that I think can be tweaked in the game, but definitely something you will notice when you play the game. Controls for manipulating the world can also be confusing. Because there is no GUI outline to indicate which area or object I am actually targeting, I've had countless incidents where I would incorrectly break down walls, break a well-placed furniture, and destroy pots by accident. So what I'm going to demonstrate now is basically the point that I wanted to make about breaking well-placed items. So if you bring out your hammer, you can start swinging and basically break certain parts of the wall. As you can see, I've sort of broken some things here. So when I want to break, for example, a specific wall like here that's been well placed, when I swing, I accidentally also break this wall. There's no indication of which wall I'm specifically wanting to break. And sometimes when I'm breaking walls, I also accidentally break the floor. And sometimes chests and other items around. So it's very confusing what kind of item I want to, break specifically. And it gets a little bit frustrating at times. Walking through doorways can bring up issues as well. It is almost mandatory to make double doors to be able to move through them. Either the bounding blocks for the wall blocks are slightly too large, or the character has some invisible waist of a giant. Because it was always cumbersome to try and walk through a single door slot, you always have to make slight left-right movement adjustments to finally fit through the door. This is not good when you are trying to run back into your house with a platoon of deadites and goblins right behind you. Just an idea for Genetix. I think having a GUI element that will highlight the object under your mouse cursor will make it so much more clear as to what you're interacting with. This would easily and with little cost rectify the problem of mistakenly breaking or dislodging objects in the game. If you like spending time chopping trees, mining resources, farming for food, while defending your established land, then you will most likely slip into these slippers quite comfortably. The gameplay is very similar to Terraria, Minecraft, Starbound, or your typical world manipulation genre. The only differentiating factor is that there is a story tacked on, and recently a leveling system has been added. The leveling system is very basic at the moment. For every material harvested, monster slain, animals hunted, you will gain EXP points and eventually gain a new level. With every level raised, your health, stamina, and luck is increased. It is a nice addition to the game, but besides making your character stronger and survive longer without eating, I haven't seen a greater purpose for it yet. Perhaps in future installments, leveling will unlock special abilities. For example, unlocking a perk that allows the user to harvest twice as much material on one node, a perk that unlocks bigger inventory space, and maybe a perk that will allow you to tame animals in the game. There is no limit to what Genetix can do with their leveling system. Music in Rogue Harvest is not anything theatrical. It does complement the season changes in game and the day cycle changes. It is actually very effective during the night cycle as the game changes from this upbeat daytime jungle music to this morbid, dark, depressed horror tunes of the dead. This is not really something that you will remember and hum along when you are waiting standing in the elevator, but it's better than nothing. And it isn't annoying or irrelevant to the game. As part of our conclusion for Downtime Distractions full reviews, I have looked at other people's feedback and reviews on Steam. This way I can make comparisons and see if I agree with people's points. Reading through the feedback, I did find that the bad feedback raised some interesting points, therefore I'll be focusing on those. The most prominent point was an emphasis on the game's graphics. I'm not sure if I agree with the feedback fully. I personally think the graphics is fine. Yes, I agree that improvements could be made in the resolution department, but the stylistic approach serves its purpose. I'm sure the reason behind the graphics choice was due to resource constraint, due to what a one-man team can do. For a game like this, I don't think you could judge the graphical appeal as a major factor of the game. If that is the case, games like Minecraft, Terraria, Starbound should have been the worst games in the world. And even worse would have been the game called VVVVV. I mean, that game only has two colors. So, you can't really judge any of those games based on their graphics. The second common feedback was the game's lack of content and objectives. I agree on this point to a degree. The game is in early access, so it is really hard to argue that the game lacks content unless we start making a standard on what is considered enough content to be early access. But that is a discussion for another time. The feedback about the exclusion of an objective is correct. The only thing that is close to exposing objectives to players are the memory flashes, but they are not clear enough for the player to view them as objectives. If Genetix made it so those flashes show a particular object or area to search for, that could lead players towards an objective that will reveal more information about the character's story and background. The flashes could also hint at the number of days the user needs to survive before it triggers the next event. This in return will give the players a bigger purpose to survive in this world. Altogether, the game is not bad. I spent a good 6 hours surviving for 14 days plus, and would happily put in more hours if there was an objective. I pretty much created every item in the game, while encountering every wildlife and monsters one could. If you like genres similar to Minecraft, Terraria, The Forest, then you might want to give this one a trial run. However, there are other similar games that are completed and offer the same experience for a similar price. For someone who would like to try these particular genre for the first time, I wouldn't recommend this title. I really hope Genetix keeps developing this title and add more content. After talking with the developer and asking about where this game is going, I personally would like to see it reach its goal, especially to experience the storyline. As suggested in the feedback, I agree that if Genetix wants to get more support for this game, they need to include a roadmap and progression charts on their Steam page. This will help keep players excited. It will give them comfort in knowing that the game is making progress while anticipating the next patch release. Thank you again for watching our first full review video. Please leave a feedback in the comment, as this will help us improve our videos. And if you like what we are doing here in Downtime Distractions, please subscribe and visit our YouTube page. And remember, there is no distraction like Downtime Distractions.